Hi there, and welcome to today's yoga class. I am Claire Thomas, and I'm so excited that you're joining me. Today's class, we will be focused on a yoga flow with some really dynamic movement and stretching in it. So if you are someone who is active outside of your yoga class, or someone who is sitting a lot and needs this stretching, this will feel really good. Especially we'll focus on our hips. So if you've got your yoga mat, I've got some blocks here, just the usual props. I've got this pillow. I like to start sitting up on this pillow because we're going to start in an easy seated pose with a seated meditation. So we're going to begin class today, again, in this easy seated pose, and you might be seated on your mat. You might elevate your bum a little bit on a pillow or a cushion. Ankles gently crossed in front of you. And then we're going to take a few moments to really check in with the shape that we're in. Be intentional with our body. So we're going to sit up nice and tall here. And then as you exhale, relax your shoulders down and back. So we're lengthening while also softening. You might relax your face and gently flutter your eyes closed. Fingertips can rest on your knees. Then we'll turn our attention inward to our breath. Notice your breath today without trying to change it. Just notice. Notice how it feels, the natural rhythm is your breath, as it travels in through your nose and out through your nose. And if your mind starts to wander, if you're thinking about what's coming next in class or something that happened right before you pressed play, that's okay. But right now we're going to practice, I'm aware that I'm thinking of something outside of this moment. I'm going to turn my attention back to my breath. And whether that happens a couple times or 100 times in this class, that's okay. A few more breaths here. Really notice. You might notice how your body feels today. So take that second and tune in. Maybe you notice areas where you're holding on to tension or you feel tight. And again, that's okay. We're not going to judge that. We're just here to notice. We're going to be that curious observer of the sensations in our body. Notice where you're touching the earth right now, the ground right now. Notice that you're supported, that you're held up. Really pay attention to that connection that you have with the earth. And then you can slowly open your eyes if they were closed. And we're actually going to come into a tabletop position here. So we're going to come right onto our hands and knees. And we're going to start with some movement here into some cat-cows. So on an inhale, your belly will drop towards your mat as your tailbone will point up towards the sky. You pull your shoulder blades around your spine here. Your gaze might come up or it'll be in front of you. And then on an exhale, you reverse that. So you pull your belly button in towards your spine as your tailbone drops. Really press into your hands here to push your sternum away from the mat. And you can let your head hang heavy. Then we can move through those movements a few times. This is great dynamic movement to start to warm up our spine. You've got the option to thread the needle here. So after a cat-cow, inhale, exhale. Your next inhale, left hand stays down, right fingertips to the sky. And as you exhale, you bring your hand underneath you. Gently rest on the right side of your head. You stay for an in-breath, and then exhale, reset back to this tabletop flat back. Inhale, left arm sweeps up. Exhale, slide your hand underneath you. Pause for that inhale. Exhale, back to tabletop. If you want to connect those together, you might move through 1 or 2 rounds of a cat-cow, followed by that twist on each side. If you find a shape where you want to linger, freedom to do so. So move through a few more rounds of that. This is personal, so you're going to take what you need here. And again, our focus is really on that dynamic movement, moving in these different directions and planes. The twisting, the flexion, the extension. And then we're going to meet in this tabletop position. And we're going to warm up our core a little bit. So from this tabletop, you're going to reach your right hand out in front of you as if you're going to shake my hand, thumb up to the sky. Your left foot can extend behind you. And you can keep your left toes on the ground here. You'll still notice, you might notice a little rocking here of your hips. So you'll want to have your core engaged, or you might lift your left heel up to the sky. Try to keep your left hip square to your mat. It might try to pop open here. If you're wibbling and wobbling, that's a-okay. Gaze will be down at your mat. And then return to tabletop. We'll try that on the other side. So you're going to lift your left hand and extend it out in front of you, and that might be enough today. You might extend your right foot, toes to the ground. And then that third option, heel elevated. You might notice some warmth being generated here. And back down. Let's do that one more time each side. Find what works for you. Right hand, left leg extended, maybe lifted. Really pressing into your left fingertips here. Back to center. We'll finish up with that other side. Again, really check in with your hips here. My right hip wants to pop open. I'm having to, it's pretty muscularly driven here to keep my hips square. And tabletop. Nice job. Now if you want to find some movement here that feels good, you might take this little wiggle here, where the left shoulder curls around to come meet the left hip. And then you go side to side. You might take some circles here, right and then left. Just mindful of your wrists. You don't want to move into any shape where you're feeling pain. If you do, you're going to back out right away. It actually feels like a nice massage in my hands here, particularly in the tendons by my thumb. So maybe you're feeling a nice massage too. And then we're going to move into a combination hamstring hip stretch, because I mentioned in the beginning of class that our hips are going to get a lot of love today. So you're going to step your right foot up between your hands, and then you're going to elevate your torso here. You might walk your right foot a little bit closer towards the front of your mat, because we're going to move in between two shapes here. The first shape, we're going to bend deeper into that front knee and sink your left hip down. Now for me, this is where I like to have some padding underneath my knee. You might also fold up the side of your mat to increase the cushioning. A rolled up washcloth works as well. But this is shape 1. So you want to have a wide stance here so you can really bend into that right knee without it jutting really far over your toes. So sinking that left hip towards the ground. And the second shape we're going to take is to send your bum towards your heel. Hands will come down on either side of your right leg. And I'm not trying to force my chest to my thigh here. I'm going to keep a flat back and just focus on a hinge at my hips. Feel this in the back of your front leg. And then we'll move forward again. You might inhale, hands come to the hips, sink your left hip down. Exhale, hands to the mat, hips shift back. And now you can move at your own pace. This range of motion is really personal here. You're doing what feels meaningful to you. See where you are feeling it. Hips, hamstring, maybe your calves, low back. There's a balance component here as well. So if you needed to be setting yourself on a wall for a third point of contact, that's great too. A few more times through here. Really just enjoy this. I'm going to meet back in tabletop, and hey, let's take some more dynamic movement of your choice. Something that I like to do that feels like a great release in my low back, because I like to come into cat pose. So pulling my belly in, rounding my back, and then I like to shift my bum towards my heels. And I'll come back up and exhale, shift bum towards the heels. This feels, and notice that I have got dorsiflexion in my foot, so I'm feeling a nice stretch in my foot. Feels good in my low back. So you can be taking any little movement that feels good here. And then we'll set up for that hip and hamstring stretch on our opposite side. So this time you're going to step your left foot forward, or whatever foot wasn't forward before. And again, I've got this little pad underneath my right knee. This is a pad meant for working in the garden, but I find it to be excellent use in yoga. So from here, again, maybe you've got your wall if you need that extra level of support. First thing we're going to do is sink into our hips. And again, you might find, ooh, my knee doesn't love this. I need more distance here. Create more space. And then you can sink deeper as well. So maybe you're just not feeling a lot of sensation here. We'll walk the toes forward, sink deeper. And try not to think of it as forcing your hips down. I just like to think of, like, I've got bones and organs here, and just the mass of me, whatever that is, gravity is acting on that downward to help send my hips down. I love that, thinking about that passive assist from gravity. And then we'll back it up. So again, shifting my bum back. I'm not trying to sit all the way back here, because for me, I have to adjust, especially with my knee. So I'm just looking for sending my bum back until my left leg is straightened, still with a little bit of a bend. My fingertips are down on the ground to support me. And I'm focusing on that hinge forward at my hips as opposed to a rounding of the back and really actively trying to pull myself down. So then our breath in, we'll shift our hips forward and down. Exhale, send your hips back. We'll just move through these two shapes at your own pace with your breath. Notice the sensations you're experiencing. Notice what's happening with your range of motion. Maybe after a few rounds, you can get a little bit deeper here. Just explore, right? We're curious observers of what's going on in our body. A few more times here. Feeling it out, enjoying that stretch. Again, whether you do activities that might cause some tightening in your lower unit, or you're sedentary, you don't get the opportunity to move as much. Either way, this is going to be great. We'll come into this tabletop now. And from here, we're going to option to come into a high plank. So just coming back onto your toes here. We're not coming into a down dog, so we still want to keep our shoulders over elbows over wrists. Keep that bum low. We don't want to arch up like this. We also don't want to arch down like this. So sometimes a mirror can be useful here. You can stay in tabletop for this. What we're going to do is we're going to step our right foot to the outside of our right hand, which is the high lizard lunge. You can bring your back knee down. I'm going to keep my back knee lifted, making it a little more active. We're going to bring it back to the plank. Reset. Exhale. Step that left foot forward. As I step that left foot forward, did you see my hips drop down? Again, you can tap your knee on the ground. That's cool. I'm going to keep it up. Back to the plank. We're going to flow through it. Step it up on the outside of your right hand. Reset in the middle. Lizard on the left. Reset in the middle. If you want to take this from tabletop, it's doable. You might notice some heat being generated here. So one more time each side. And this time I'm going to set my right foot up. I'm going to allow my left knee to come down. And I'm going to rest here. I'm going to stay up on my hands. You have the option to come down to your forearms or bring your forearms to a block. Bring that focus back to your breath, wherever your mind has traveled to as we were moving through that. Let's bring it back. Then we're going to step it back to that high plank once more, just so we can reset and send that left foot forward. Now, again, I'm going to bring my right knee down. And we're just going to hang here for 5 more breaths. Keeping that gentle bend in your elbows. We don't want to lock out our joints. And then we'll come back to tabletop. And yogi's choice here. I'm just going to do a few cat-cows and a few of those lateral wiggles here. And then we're going to bring our feet to meet our hands, and we're going to rise all the way up to standing here. So sometimes our flows are all seated. Today we want that dynamic movement, so we're going to do some standing poses. So we're going to come into chair pose, or Utkatasana in Sanskrit. So you can keep your feet hips width apart. And then you're going to sit down in that imaginary chair. Arms can lift up here. Take a second to focus right here. You're going to want to tilt your pelvis and drop your tailbone down. Really feel quads engaged. From here, we're going to go into diver's pose. So what we're going to do is our palms are going to sweep down at our sides. We're going to come into this flat back with our fingertips facing behind us, palms to the sky. Option to come up on your toes. Gaze will be down with a long neutral neck. And then drop your heels, come into chair. Always the option to stand up straight if you need that. Releasing your low back. Diver's pose. Sit back in your chair. One more time. Chair pose, stand up, feel that release, maybe a little bit of a back bend. And from here, we're going to step your right foot back behind you. We're in this high lunge here, this crescent lunge. So your right foot is stepped back, your left knee is bent, and then we're going to twist. So we're going to twist to our left. Now you can take an open arm twist with your arms at a T, or you can bring your hands to prayer. Take a breath in, really lengthen through your spine, and then exhale. Hook your right elbow on the outside of your left leg. Energetically squeeze your inner thighs together. Left elbow pointing up at the sky. Option to open your arms here for a fuller expression. Good job. And then we'll step your right foot in to meet your left, and we'll hang out in a forward fold for a few breaths. Option to grab for opposite elbows and just hang out. We'll rise up. This time, you're going to step your left foot behind you, coming in to this crescent lunge. See my back heel here? See if you can shift so that your back heel is pointing up, up, up at the sky. And then we'll take that twist, whether that's to a T or whether you bring your hands to prayer. Breath in, crown of the head towards the sky. Exhale, left tricep, hooks around your right leg. Press your hands together here to deepen the twist. Option to open those arms. And then we'll come around to a wide-legged forward fold. So you can keep your head down, facing the long edge of your mat. Maybe you find a sway here. Come back to standing. Let's do one more great stretch for our hamstrings here. With a little bit of a balance challenge too. So what we're going to do is from standing here in mountain pose, you're going to take your right heel and step it in front of you. You're going to take your left hand and reach for your right pinky toe. So see, I've got a nice bend in my left leg here. You should feel this stretch along your right hamstring. And it's okay if you can't go down all the way. We're just looking for sensation. Then as you stand up, you're going to lift that right knee to a 90-degree angle, standing leg raise. Low belly pulled in. Heel sets down. Reach for or past your right pinky toe. Standing leg raise. Let's do a few more. I'm just moving for a different angle for you to see. Stretch that hamstring. Find that balance. Last time. Let's hold it for 3 breaths here. And release. Nice job. Take that over to the other side. So this time our right leg is our base leg. So we're going to be putting most of our weight into it. So we're still going to keep a little bit of a bend in that leg. That helps us to be stable and secure. Helps with our balance. So this time, left foot will tap out the heel in front. Right hand will reach again. We want to keep a straight back here. So it doesn't really matter how far you go. But you're going to want to reach for the outside of your left pinky toe, maybe to the floor. And as you stand up, leg comes up, foot is flexed. Pause here, heel comes down, find the stretch. Ooh. Taking our time here. Once you land, stay for a breath. Cycle through a few more, maybe 2 or 3 more. I'm going to hold this one. Whenever you get here in this standing leg raise, stay for 3 breaths. Nice. All right. Come on. You can find some movement here. Flexing the foot here. Coming up on your toe, bending your knee. Stretching through the foot, feeling it in your calf. We're going to come into our release pose for our hip now. So we're going to come into half pigeon. So you might pop in a down dog for a second. Right leg lifts behind you. You're going to draw your right knee behind your right wrist. Letting your shin fall where it will. It doesn't have to be parallel to the front of your mat. You might walk your left leg long behind you. You're going to draw your right hip back as you push your left hip down towards the mat. And once you've got that square, then you can start to walk your chest forward. Maybe you're landing on a pillow or a block. Maybe your forehead meets the mat. If this doesn't work for your knees, if it works, you stay there. If it doesn't, you've got the option, seated, to cross your right ankle just above your left knee. This might be enough sensation. You might have to walk your heel closer to your bum. You can always have your back up against a wall, or you can be laying on your back here. So find a way where you can settle in and start to get a nice deep stretch in our hip. We're going to stay here for 10 more breaths. Why? Our muscles are surrounded by connective tissue. And that connective tissue, it takes time under tension to find some release, known as our fascia. So in a big complex like our hips, even when we do the dynamic stretching, it might feel really great and we might feel looser. We've created some space. But if we really want to get to a deeper level into this thick connective tissue that will get knots in it or sticky areas, if we want to release those, we need to hold a shape where those areas are in a lengthened position for minimum 90 seconds. It might be physically uncomfortable. Pain is not okay. Discomfort is okay. But discomfort might be, surprisingly or not surprisingly, in your mind. Having to stay still. Just a few more breaths on this side. You can do it. You can do hard things. Now gently press up here and stay for a moment here. Option to exhale, forehead to the mat. Inhale, press up. Many times when we exit this pose, we're just like done, out of it. Get me to the next side. So we will meet in downward facing dog. If you wanted to add this little bit of a flow, you can. And then we will, legs will meet, we'll come into this one last downward dog. And we'll set up for our opposite side. Now, if you took a different shape to accommodate your body, then do the opposite side in that shape. So whatever you did on your right, we're going to do on the left. So if you're in this half pigeon, again, we're going to check in with our hips here. So this time we're going to pull our left hip back as we send our right hip down. And we're going to feel, I have to walk my right toes down a little bit more towards the right edge of my mat. Find your sweet spot. You can really just settle in. And then you'll soften your chest towards your mat. We do want sensation here. So notice where you are experiencing sensation. And maybe there's some tension you're holding on to. So do a quick scan. Maybe you need to unclench your jaw. Kind of let your tongue go loose for a little bit. Relax and soften your eyes. Maybe your hands are clenched up so you can relax your fingers. Maybe you're really holding on here, so you can bring some type of support under your head to find a little bit of rest. And just know that sometimes it's the slowing down that's the trickiest part, and that's okay. We're going to go back to what we talked about in the beginning of class, that, hey, we just noticed maybe our minds are drifting. So let's come back to this moment. And one tool is to focus on the breath. We've got 5 more breaths here. So if you have an urge to move, can you stay for just 3 more breaths? I think you can. And after your 3rd breath, you'll press up. And we're going to meet with our, seated on our bums with our legs long in front of us. But if you want to take a few moments to relax your forehead back down and then press up. And then we will swing our legs around. We're going to come into a seated forward fold. I'm going to bend my knees, toes to the sky. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, we're going to hinge forward. Like we saw in our hamstring stretch, it's not about forcing chest to thigh or really rounding your back. I'm focusing on that hinge at my hips, but I'm also just allowing some relaxation here. So just allow it to be. We'll sit up. We're going to make our way onto our back. Hug your knees in. Find some movement here. And then arms will come to a T. Unless you're up against the wall and you can't do it. Exhale, drop your knees to one side. And stay for a breath. And then an inhale will bring your legs center. As you exhale, drop them to the opposite side. Stay for a breath. And repeat. Inhale up to center. Exhale. Take a twist. Inhale to center. Exhale to twist. Move through a few more. Just follow your breath here. And the knees will hug in once more. If there's any shape that you want to take that's calling to you, go for it. Otherwise, we'll meet in Savasana. Lay out long on your mat. Take up space. If you're thinking about cutting out early, but you can stay, I recommend that you do. Allow yourself this time to just be. Slowly begin to move your fingers and your toes as you reawaken your body. Find some gentle movement and roll on to your right or your left side. Place one hand on your heart and say thank you to yourself today for showing up. And then press up to an easy seated pose, just like how we started class. You can bring your hands to heart center. Check in with how you feel right now. It's so easy for us to be go, go, go on autopilot. Make a conscious effort. How do I feel right now? And there's no judgment and there's no right or wrong answer. We're just getting information about ourselves. Let's take one big breath together. Breathe in through your nose. Exhale, open your mouth, let it out. Thank you so much for moving and flowing and stretching with me today. If you've got any questions or comments or requests, please leave them below. All right, be well, yogis. Until next time.